Hello, Joan Lunden, and welcome to the New Mid. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, Joan, you are an author. You've written some amazing books, but I have to tell you, your latest book, Why Did I Come Into This Room, is just so candid and hilarious. How were you inspired to write this book? And I have to ask you, the titles of your chapters are the best. How did you come up with those?
So this is, I think, my 11th book. And I remember way, way, way back when I wrote, my first or second book, and they were bestsellers. And, the publisher comes back to you and says, oh, write another one. And I remember looking at my book agent one day saying, what am I going to write about now? Like I already said all this. And he said, you will always write about that which you want to know more about. And he was so right. When I left Good Morning America, I wrote A Bend in the Road is Not the End of the Road. It was a book about change. When I went through my care, I wrote a book, Had I Known, all about the journey. And so as I sat down and I'd been working on this book for quite a long time. I started it even before the book about cancer and my cancer journey. And at that time, I think I called it Living Younger, Longer or something. And then I thought it's not about living younger. It's about understanding our body, how we age, what we can do about it, and the fact that we so need to talk about it. Because for some reason, all these things that happen to women, and we experience aging differently because we have estrogen. That's the whole reason. And I don't know,
Wait.
we overshare on Facebook all the time, but for some reason, these subjects of hot flashes, leaky bladders, expanding waistlines, they're kind of like taboo. And I think it's because they're embarrassing,
Mm-hmm.
but they're
Yes.
also worrisome. And they can lead a woman who's just experiencing these things down this terrible path. Am I less appealing now? Am I less sexy? And pretty soon you get to, am I less relevant? And that's a terrible path to go down. So I wanted to put it all out there. Okay, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I knew I had to be funny because you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
talk about all. My husband walked through my office one day, my home office, and he said, "What are you working on today?" And I said, "Leaky bladders." He said, "Oh, but you can't like say that, right?" I said, "Are you kidding?" The chapter title is "I laughed so hard tears rolled down my leg," and he gives me that arched eyebrow, like, "Are you sure you should be doing this?"
Well, I love that story in there about your black tie event. I mean, that is just
Oh,
priceless.
should
Um,
I
s-
tell
yeah,
it?
please do. I love that story.
Well, because I mean, so many women, hundreds of women have got come to me on my Facebook and said, I had something happen just like that. So I went to this big gala and I had on one of those like kind of form-fitting but totally beaded gowns, black, like it's got kind of shine, but they're heavy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so of course I had my trusty Spanx on under it. And I went to the ladies' room. And so my theory is that our bladder, as we age, is kind of like that experiment that we all learn about in Psych 101.
The Pavlov's dog,
The
right?
Pavlov, yes, the Pavlovian dog. You ring the bell, you feed them. You ring the bell, you feed them. And then finally, you just ring the bell and they salivate. Well, our bladder is kind of like that. Our bladder understands when we've gone into a bathroom or when we've gotten out of our car and we're about to walk into our house. It says, oh, we're almost there. Here, I'll race you. And so I got in the little stall and I'm like pulling up this beaded gown and trying to get the Spanx down. And well, let's just say the Pavlovian response won. So now here I am in the stall. I'm at this super gala black tie event. What am I going to do? And first of all, I have to say, I think after panicking, I laughed and I took what I called at that point my scuba suit wet off and stuffed it in that little thing that they always have on the inside of a woman's
The little
stall.
trash
And I
box.
just had to just drop my gown to the floor and walk back out there, um, bare-assed. And I couldn't get it out of my mind, no matter who I was talking to. I was thinking of like, like maybe like young girls do this, like Britney Spears or something, but I can't believe I'm walking around this room like this.
Oh
So,
gosh.
and
They only knew, if they only knew when you were talking to them, right?
Wipe the smile.
They're like, wow, Joan's very friendly tonight. She's really happy.
Yes, smiling all the time.
Well, that's what I love about this book, because, you're right. It is very taboo. We'll talk to anybody when we're pregnant, like, oh, my body's doing this and it's doing that. But we won't talk about what's going on when we're in midlife, And this book, I'm telling you, I'm going to buy it for all my girlfriends, because it's a must read for midlife, because you break it into mind, body, and spirit. And I love how you talk about the mind, because it really does. Our mindset really counts so much. And your mom, Gladys, would be like everybody's best friend,
Glitzy Gladdy.
Glitzy Gladdy, and you are a positive person and you're hilarious. And, it sounds to me like you got it from your mom.
I got definitely the positive attitude, the glass half full. I'm a glass half full girl. And if there's any way you can become that, it just makes it so much easier to go through life, and especially to go through aging.
And what should we know for our brains about aging?
I think what we need to know, first of all, I'm a big believer in that knowledge is power. So we need to understand our bodies better, which is why when I approached this book, as much as I wanted to approach it with a sense of humor, it is incredibly well researched, because I wanted to know more about aging. And what I learned is that we need to fully understand how little things that we can control, like lack of sleep, lack of hydration, not managing our stress, how big an impact those can have on our body, on our attitude, on our brain, and on our longevity. I just think that the most important thing, though, is to understand how much your attitude and your expectation about aging will affect how you age and how long you'll live, because we are raised with this idea that aging is deterioration, it's decline. Oh, look at Uncle Charlie, he can't get out of his seat, he's retired, he's he can't go out and run anymore. Well, we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a very different world in this time in life, where people are living until their 90s, and the longer we extend out, the longer people are going to be living. And yes, a financial expert will say, and that means you need to be saving more money. Well, whether you're doing that or not, I'm going to tell you something you can be doing to make sure that those extra years that we're all living will be pleasant years. And that is that we've got to stay active. We've got to just the lack of exercise alone and what that means to the deterioration of muscle. And the more muscle you lose and you don't have that muscle mass, the harder it's going to be for you to lose weight, and the more you're going to add pounds every year, because we just biologically lose, I forget what it is, 10% of our muscle mass every year, no matter really what. And that means people can put on up to 10 pounds a year. Right. I think the one thing I really learned that surprised me, there were a lot of things that surprised me. But one of the things that surprised me is that when you get to the point that you don't have enough estrogen to produce children anymore, and that can be a different age for different women, our bodies carry fat cells on our hips and our buttocks and our thighs, standing ready for the moment that we start having an expanding belly. Because when we do, that's what kind of keeps us, balanced. But our body's really smart. And as soon as there's not enough estrogen there to actually reproduce, it says, oh, you don't need us anymore. And it literally biologically is pre-designed, pre-programmed to move those up to our abdomen. And that's why all of a sudden women look down and say, what happened? Like,
Right.
swear to God, I did not eat more Tostitos last year.
I
But
know
for
it's that
some
stubborn
reason,
belly fat.
it's a
That
belly fat.
yeah.
Now, the other thing I found out is that one of the most important numbers we should know, you know how they tell you to know your resting heart rate and your cholesterol level, blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the most important numbers you need to know is your waist circumference. Now, I want to know, have you ever gone to a doctor and have they ever taken out a tape measure and measured your waist?
Never. No.
Never.
Not
I haven't,
even asked how my waist was. Like,
I know it's just not done. I mean, a tailor, maybe if you're having something taken in. So I immediately ran out and got a tape measure. Bottom line is, I'll give it to you. A woman shouldn't really have more than a 35-inch waist, and a man shouldn't have more than a 40. And this is the other important thing to know. So now we don't have to feel guilty. That's what really important. We don't have to feel guilty that we somehow did this to ourselves.
right.
We didn't, but we do need to know that any fat above your belly button is the most dangerous fat. It's up around your organs. It can get in your organs, and it's closer to your heart. But if you lose about 8 to 10 pounds, you can lose an inch, maybe even an inch and a half around your waist. So, it's like pointing out the important things we need to know, but then giving some takeaway of how we can remedy it.
That's what I love about this book. And that is fascinating. I had no idea about the waistline, like, not
Yeah,
at all. No one talks about that.
I know. And yet it's so important. It's like the biggest
Yeah.
predictor of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease
It
and
seems
hypertension.
simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love how you talk about aging and we talk about our age and that
Yeah.
number. And, I was in the entertainment industry and, they value 18 to 49.
I
So
know.
when I turned 49, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to become invisible. Like I had this whole thing in my head, right? Well,
Yeah.
then I read your book and you talk about a story about taking your daughters, your three oldest daughters, to Morocco. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that story?
Well, I took them to Morocco because I wanted them to see another part of the world where they have practically nothing, so they'd appreciate what they have. That was a parental thing. But I got to tell you what the most amazing thing happened. We had gone out to the desert and taken a camel ride and, watched the sunrise up on a dune. But on the way back, we were driving through like this desert area, and our driver like pulled over to the side of the road. He said, wait, let me see if I can get them to talk to us. So he asked a whole bunch of sheep herders if we could go into their tent. It's a big tent. Obviously, they all lived in there at night. They said yes, and we went in this tent, and there was this older woman in there, like seemingly the maternal, probably the grandmother of all of them. And it was, dirt floor, there's no TV, no electricity, nobody had anything that allowed, they went by the stars. This is what we learned. They were nomadic, and they went by the stars and the moon and the seasons. And when the seasons changed, they would take down the tent, pack everything up and put it on a donkey, and they'd walk 100 miles. So I looked at this older woman, and at one point I said, do you mind if I ask your age? And she looked at me like I was, I don't know, from Mars or something. And she said, what? I said, well, how many years you've been alive? And she said, I don't know. I was born on the desert. There are no birth certificates. There are no Hallmark birthdays. This woman had no idea how old she was. So when that day came to pack everything up and walk 100 miles, she wouldn't say, gee, I don't know, is this too much to do for my age? Don't you hate that saying, for my age?
I hate that saying.
Is this skirt too short for my age? Can I still wear ripped jeans, or are they, for my age? But I got back in the car and I thought, wow, how freeing that would be to just go through life and not know your age.
I
Can you
love that.
imagine?
I read that and that I just sat there and I
Oh,
thought about that. I was like, God, that is just incredible. That is just amazing to be free of that. And so another part of this book that really resonated me was you talk about a happiness list. Do you
yeah.
do you mind talking a little bit more about that happiness list?
Well, everybody knows the phrase bucket list, and everybody kind of thinks your bucket list has places you want to go and see, little things you want to still do. But To me, I think your bucket list should be a happiness list, because I think back to when I was a little girl, my mom always used to say to me, always have plans. It makes life more exciting, because half the fun of doing anything is planning it and anticipating it. You know, with any like big party or celebration, and it's almost like this letdown when it's over, even though it was perfect, because you've been on this high of planning it. Well, that's how we have to look at our later life. You need to have, that list of things that make you happy. And they don't have to be big things. I'm not talking about any, starting a philanthropy or anything, but all the little things that make you happy in life. You need to put these on and plan for them and then put them into effect. Happiness, doesn't just kind of come up and slap us in the face. It's actually, this is one of the things that I probably learned, not doing this book, but doing previous books. That was the most important thing probably I ever learned. And that is that happiness is a choice. It's a
Yes.
choice that we make to be happy. But I do talk in the book about some of the things you can do. Is that science tells us, medical science tells us, that if you smile, there are muscles in your face that tell your brain to be happy. If you watch a funny movie, or you go and you look at funny memes and things on Pinterest, I'm a little bit of a Pinterest addict. It's like my bulletin board. I used to be a magazine addict. I was that person you hated on a plane that would constantly be tearing pages out of a magazine.
I
But
love
now
doing that.
now I put it all on Pinterest and I can have it right there. But all these things that can make you smile and make you happy. And by the way, one of the things that I do talk about in the book is that doing things for others, like during this crazy time we're living in, picking up the phone and calling a friend you haven't talked to in ages and reconnecting. And you'll talk about old times that were so easy and comfortable, and you can kind of wear them like a warm, cozy robe.
It's so fun, and it feels good. I like when you buy someone a gift, and
Uh-huh.
you figure out the perfect gift to give them. Sometimes I think I feel better than they do getting it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I find that during this time, I have done more of that. But what's good about it is it's teaching us. I think we're all learning during this crazy
Right.
time, as stifling as it may seem to a lot of people. We're learning how to entertain ourselves. I think back to
Yeah.
once when I took my kids. They were the older ones, but they were teenagers. And I took them down to a resort in the Caribbean. And one day I heard that we could go on this boat and go out to this island and be on this beach where there's nobody. And then they bring up like fish that they just caught and they make you lunch. And I told my girls I was so excited to be doing this. And I said, but they set an anchor down and you have to get out of the boat and walk up onto the beach. There's no pier, so you can't take along anything, a phone or a to listen to music. And they
Right,
looked at me
right.
and said, but then what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to enjoy the sunshine and the beach and this amazing lunch. And they said, but we're going to be bored. And I said, well, that's kind of the purpose here. It is to be bored in the sun on this beautiful beach. And I think during this time, people have had to learn how to entertain themselves and not be bored all the time. I do jigsaw puzzles. That's one of my big things.
I was going to say, and yeah, I've seen how many jigsaw puzzles you have. And that's one of the things you talk about with helping your brain
Yeah.
is reading and jigsaw puzzles. And you had a couple other suggestions in there.
Learning new things. That's the most important thing. Learning new things, meaning to learn a new language, which I'm about to start. I'm going to use one of the online
Oh,
things where they
great.
teach you.
What language?
Well, I took Spanish when I was all the way through grammar school. I even lived in Mexico City for 3 years going to school. And I took a little bit of French, but that's the only reason why I haven't started it yet is I'm trying to decide. Now, if I was really going to go by the book, I would be learning, I don't know, German or Chinese, something that I've never learned before. That's what really, really gets your brain the best. Or learning a new hobby. Like if I took up, I don't know, knitting or crocheting or something I've never really done. But I got to tell you, all those things, and by the way, reading, one of the most fascinating things I learned, singing.
Really?
Singing along to a song helps your brain. Why? Because you have to remember the words that are coming up.
Uh-huh.
You have to anticipate them. I mean, all those things are things that like pop up in your brain. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to create new neurons. It's a process called neurogenesis. And it used to be a long time ago that they thought we were all born with the same amount, I don't know, 300 billion neurons, and that was it. They start to deteriorate. Then they learned that that's not true, that we keep creating new neurons all the time. And this is something that we have the power to do. And this slows down the decline of cognitive thinking. And the thing that slows it down the most, the best new neurons, the ones that are most adept at actually connecting with the central system, are those that are created when we're exercising.
Oh, really?
Exercising, that pumps up blood and nutrients and oxygen up to our brain, and those are the smartest neurons. Now, if you want to do something where like a hip hop class, like I always used to go to them. Now my husband got me that thing called the mirror.
Oh,
And
those are so
have it,
cool.
I have it there, and so I always am following an instructor. And this is the best neuron, because what you're doing is you're listening to somebody instructing you, and anybody can do it on their laptops. There's a gazillion online exercise classes these days. But when you listen to someone that instructs you what to do, and then you tell your brain, and your brain then tells your body, like I do these hip hop classes all the time, and it's a good thing they can't see me. However, it's really helpful to my brain. I mean, yes, I get exercise at the same time and I get up my heart rate, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really doing it, quite honestly, for my brain. So I have to remember. And when the guy gets to the end and says, all right, let's put all 8 together. I'm like,
Wait a minute. That's fantastic. Well, Joan, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. You have been a trailblazer. And in 2014, when you were diagnosed with cancer, you were extremely bold and went on the cover of People magazine. Now, that was groundbreaking, and you just, I get a little teary eyed, made it so acceptable for women. So
be
thank
bald.
you to be bald on the cover.
Yeah,
How did you do that? Like,
it
that
was
was amazing.
that was probably the hardest decision I made all throughout my cancer battle. Um, I've been on People magazine a number of times, and the editor called me, the editor in chief, and they came to the house with the photographer. Um, and I had already gone through about 12 rounds of chemo. And she said, look, we're going to do one picture with your wig on, one picture with like a scarf. And then if you're cool with it, we're going to take that off, and we're going to do one picture with just the bald head, and you can see it and you can make the decision. Because that these days, it used to be you didn't see pictures till like, weeks later. So the guy, like, we all sat down afterwards and he showed me, and all I remember saying was, thank God I have an oval head. And she
You
said,
have a great head.
she said, I don't know if you really truly understand what this will mean if you do it, but it will really be important. It will be iconic. So I guess I was worried that somebody might think I was, I don't know, sensationalizing having cancer or something. I don't know. It was just a scary thing to do, but I decided that I would. And I've never regretted it. I always think about this one woman who wrote me, I guess on Facebook or something, and she said, I was diagnosed with cancer recently. And when I heard those words, the first thing that popped into my mind was your cover on People magazine. She said, not your face or your head, it was your smile. And you had a twinkle in your eyes and you had a smile. And I felt to myself, if she could be doing that going through cancer, I'm going to be okay. And I was like, wow, like that was all totally worth it.
Well,
And,
thank you.
my dad was a cancer surgeon back in the days when there was no chemo, there was no radiation. Always thought I'd grow up to be a doctor, but I didn't. But I'm a disseminator of information, and I'm a passionate disseminator of health information. But that cancer diagnosis just dropped this amazing opportunity into my lap. It was truly a gift, because all of a sudden I thought, wow, I can learn as much as I can going through this, take the camera in every time I go anywhere, show people what it's like, and carry on my dad's legacy. Like, this is the most amazing opportunity I've ever gotten in my life. And I've had so many people say to me that they've watched my videos on my website, and they said it took the scary out of it, because
Yes.
I watched what it's like inside radiation and what it's like inside a chemo facility. And so, it's so strange to say that my cancer diagnosis was a gift, but in my particular case, it really was.
Well, that goes back to your mindset again.
Yeah.
It was how you looked at it and what you did and took with it. And it's so great because you are a health advocate. You have been, you're helping us now. And now you have, which is so exciting, you're back on national television. Yay for
Yes.
all of us with the new PBS show, Second Opinion with Joan Lunden. So, how did that come about? And what are your thoughts on this show?
When I got that call that they wanted me to do a PBS show on health, I got that, first of all, a health show, and second opinion, like really digging deeper into the weeds on health issues that we need to better understand, and on PBS, which is like, I don't know, it's like the angels of news, it's
Oh,
it
yeah.
was just I couldn't say yes fast enough. And we were able to get together safely a few months back and shoot the first 10 shows. And I just love doing it. People need to check their local listings to find out. And I know I just got a Google alert that it plays on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. in Rochester, New York. I'm starting to get all these Google alerts from different places as to when it plays. But it's a great show. I have a doctor on with me all the time, Dr. Lou Papa, who's terrific. And then we had another live guest in the studio. And we had other live guests via remote, of course. But we also had, which I was so impressed with, we had two other doctors, like really legitimate doctors, watching at all times.
Great.
One by remote, one in the studio. Just they sat in on our table reads, our briefings, and they sat and watched the show just to make sure that we didn't say anything wrong, since it is, a dissemination of health information. I was like, wow, this is great. We might have had more writers at Good Morning America, but we didn't have like experts making sure we didn't say anything wrong.
Well, this is kind of like being a doctor then. This is sort of your outlet,
Oh yeah.
your
Oh
tribute
yeah.
to your dad, which is amazing. So you must be really busy then.
So besides that, I'm hosting a podcast for the Washington Post, which is all about the future of healthcare. It's called Caring for Tomorrow. We partnered with the Cleveland Clinic, and we actually shot them like shows down at Cleveland Clinic. And then one of the most exciting things that I haven't really talked about a lot, because it's just recently that I'm really locking it in. I'm accepting a faculty position at Lehigh University at their new College of Health, and I'm going to be teaching population health and the media. So basically everything we're living with right now, and how important it is of how the media translates anything from a new vaccine to a pandemic, in order to make sure that we can get the public to go along with it. And and how crazy it is to try to do that in this new age with social media.
That's
So it's really
fantastic.
exciting. And of course, it means I'm talking to experts every day, learning so much. It's so much fun.
Well, that is so great. Well, I would love to, as we're getting close to the end of our conversation, I'd love to go back to your book. And at the end of your book, you talk about writing an obituary, and you talk about your mom's obituary,
And her eulogy. And
your
your
eulogy.
obituary
Yes.
is pretty easy. You can go to your Facebook page and just take the stuff off about, and there you go. But at a eulogy, and I remember back to when I was 13 years old and my sitting on the floor with my brother and family room and my mom writing my dad's eulogy, because my dad passed away when I was only 13. He was not only a cancer surgeon, but a private pilot. And he was coming back from speaking at a cancer convention and he crashed in our private plane. And then, and I learned a lot about my dad, just listening to my mom write this eulogy. And then years later, when my mom was probably in her 60s, not in her 80s, but like maybe in her 60s, she said, I'm writing my eulogy out and I want you to hear it and I want you to take it and put it somewhere, because I want this to be said, and I want my funeral not to be sad. I want it to be happy. So she wrote it out on those big long yellow legal tablets, like 3 pages. It was pretty much primetime special, but I kept that. And when she passed away at almost 95 years old, a few years back, I pulled that out. Now I took a little writer's liberty, since I am a writer, but it was essentially that eulogy. And then I went to give a speech, and I was backstage, and Stephen Covey was on stage, who wrote the 7 Principles of Highly Successful People. And I watched him do something that absolutely blew me away. And this is the exercise I take people through in the book. And this is not a morbid exercise. This is an enlightening, eye-opening exercise. And he had everybody to close their eyes. We were in a stadium with like 25,000 people. Everybody close your eyes and don't open them until I tell you you can. He said, now we're going to take a little trip. You know where we're going? We're going to your funeral. Oh, look who's coming in the door. It's everybody from work. What are they saying about you? And, oh, here comes your family. And as your family's passing by, what are they saying about you? Well, as you go through this, and as the eulogy is read, what do you want them to say in that eulogy? So if you take this challenge and you write your eulogy, it's not just saying she was a television broadcaster. What do they want to be saying? What do you want people to be saying about you as a person? You were always there for others. You were always the life of a party. Like some of these will apply or not, that you were caring, you were philanthropic, you were this, whatever it is that you hope, that you want people to be saying about you, this piece of paper can serve as your guidepost as to how you want to live the rest of your life. And as I went through that and took that challenge, I really find, silly little things, stopping and putting my quarters into the parking meter in my local town, and I have 3 extras, and just going up and putting them in the one in front. Silly little things. It's not that you have to start a philanthropy. It's not anything big. It's the little things. I practice every day being more patient with my teenagers. Thankfully, they're out of middle school, those really easy years.
I'm just getting in middle school right now, so.
Middle school is tough. And then high school, they start to mature a little, so they'll actually come out of their rooms and have a conversation with you. Then let me tell you, when they go away to college and then they come back and now they've gotten it, all of a sudden they're like, wow, wait, Mom, you were cool. I didn't realize that.
Well, that is amazing.
This is such a great exercise. We'll have to tell everybody, though. The title of the chapter is, When I Die, I Want to Be Cremated. It's my last chance for a smoking hot body.
The titles of your chapters are amazing. So I just wanted to ask you, for you, what is aging well? What does that mean to you?
Well, it was learning more about my body, and now really, truly, I'd heard this, but I'd paid lip service to it, honoring my body. Like, I used to think that sleeping late was like a lazy person, something a lazy person did. And now I look to sleep later. And when I wake up, I'll admit that every now and then, if I wake up and it's like 10 o'clock, I'll panic for a minute and then I'll smile like, oh my God, I used to count the hours when I was at Good Morning America, I would always count. Okay, so I got to bed at 10. I'm up at 3, and I would count to see, like, oh, I only got 4 hours. I only got 5 hours. Now, if I wake up and say, wait a second, I got 9 hours, I break into a smile because I know that I'm doing something so good for my body. I've really changed my diet because I'm being good to my body. I'm being good to my liver and my thyroid and my pancreas. And, I just think, and I understand the importance of getting that exercise in, because, and I'll tell you, once I learned how important exercise was to my brain, like I couldn't find my sneakers fast enough, because all of a sudden it wasn't just trying to, lose weight, or
Right.
it was something that was going to keep my cognitive thinking. But, and I'm really busy. I mean, I'm like the new midlife, that you keep working, which to me keeps your brain engaged, you got to stay social. If you don't have a bunch of friends, start working on it. Join a book club. Do something that gets you so that you wake up in the morning and you say, I can't wait to talk to so-and-so. And because these are the things that really gauge how successfully you'll age. They say 3 things. Number 1, staying engaged. Number 2, social connections. And number 3 is a sense of purpose. Notice I didn't say money in any of those. Those are the 3 things they say that will gauge how successfully you will age. And a sense of purpose doesn't have to be, volunteering at the hospital. It can be having a garden, a vegetable garden, that you get up and say, oh my gosh, I got to get out there and weed that today. It can be an avid reader and getting back to that book, but it's having a sense of purpose. And to me, those are the most important things. I will share with you one thing though, even though I'm like the new
The new
older,
mid.
the
You're the
new
new
mid, the
mid.
new older, I don't have to do it. I don't have to be going the fastest in the fast lane. I used to go at like supersonic speed in the fast lane. And now I can like dip my toe into the fast lane anytime I want. And I can live at the speed of life. And that is so much more comfortable. And I think that's the silver lining of, of aging, is that moment where you kind of give yourself permission to exhale,
Mm-hmm.
maybe lean back and look at your life and say, huh, look at that. I made it through a whole lot of challenges. And and of course that's your pivot point. That allows you to then look forward and say, I thought I might always want to do this or that, or God, I used to love painting. I used to love doing this, and taking it up again. One of my husband's aunts, she just passed away at 102, but she was just a lost soul when her husband died in like 90ish. And everybody said, you used to love painting. And they went and got her all the things. She loved the last 10 years of her life. Every one of us has a painting in our house that Aunt Millie painted. And it gave her a sense of purpose, a sense of joy. So that's that happiness, that joy list, that if we take the time to do it, that's planning. You're planning on how to stay happy and active and engaged.
And I love that. And I've just enjoyed this interview so much, Joan. Thank you for coming on the new mid and for all that you're doing and for being a health advocate. Because I know you've American Heart Association, American Cancer Association, you've done so much. And thank you, and keep going. And we can't wait to see you on your PBS Second Opinion with Joan Lunden and the book, Why Did I Come Into This Room? Which I have to tell you, you guys are going to enjoy this book so much. And the titles are they're hilarious. And you have great quotes. Where
I'm
did you get all those quotes?
I have always been a saver of quotes. I look for them. Sometimes they're just a sentence in a book, and I'll save that sentence with the author. I just love quotes. To me, they're a little collection of words that have this tremendous effect on our attitude and our thoughts, and they stay with us and they guide us. I love quotes.
Yeah, well, you have so many that are wonderful in this book. And all of your congratulations on your new job. I don't know if you call it
Yeah.
a job, but
Yes.
you have so much going and you're such a great example for us. So, thank you so much, Joan.
My pleasure.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.